Bike computers have transformed cycling. By quantifying the power we produce, power meters have had a huge impact on the way we train and race, but also being able to see your speed, heart rate and cadence provides valuable data and feedback for a rider. This impact has been seen in pro ranks, with the riders being able to use their power meters to perfectly pace their efforts with metronomic precision on climbs and time trials. The thinking being that if you know what power or heart rate your body can sustain for a given period, you know not to go off too hard. But could staring at a screen with a predefined power or heart rate target limit us? I mean, a huge component of athletic performance is mental, and by setting yourself a target of what you think you can do, you might actually be limiting yourself. Would we be better riding off field? Could we produce more power? I'm going to find out by doing a time trial. And it's really windy. I'm going to do a time trial today with no data in front of me, because after years now of riding with data and power numbers, I'm starting to wonder if it's actually holding me back, if I'm mentally limiting myself. So today you get to watch me annihilate myself doing a time trial, and it's starting to rain. Dreamy. Well, I'm going to do the time trial on a course that I've done many times before on both road and time trial bikes, so I have plenty of data to compare against. I am still going to record the data as well using my Quark power meter and Wahoo head unit. The difference is I'm not going to be able to look at it. This is going in my pocket. My previous best on this 25-mile TT course was 49 minutes off 283 watts, but that was on a TT bike getting dead aero, which kind of limits my power output a bit. My best on a road bike, the same Pinarello F12 I have here, was 55 minutes 44 seconds and 291 watts. Both instances I was paying close attention to my power, and it helped me pace. But how will I fare without it? I think this is definitely going to be type 2 fun. I'm going to beat myself. Beep, 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 beep. Settle in now. Try and make myself small. Go. I've got no idea how fast I'm going or what I'm doing. All I can feel is a savage headwind. It's like 20 miles an hour. So this is an out and back course, and I'm on the return leg now. Having just done the turnaround, and I had a savage headwind on the way out. And now, oh man, feel that! This is ridiculous. It's turned in, thankfully, to a massive tailwind, and I don't know how fast I'm going, but it feels fast. Get into a big gear. Just get small, get dead aero. I'm just trying to keep as small as I can. This tailwind is nice, but I just have no idea where I am, what I'm doing. It's really quite alien, and I'm not used to it, and I definitely feel it's like it's throwing me off. I feel like I have become too reliant on the numbers. I mean, I'm tired, but I'm not that annihilated. But I've got no idea. I have no idea how I've done. So let's go and compute the results and find out. I've just looked at the results. I can't quite believe this, but my average power was 1 watt less than when I did it last time on a road bike. So I did 290 watts and did a time of 57 minutes, which is a few minutes slower, but the times aren't really comparable because, I mean, look at today. The conditions are much slower and I'm wearing full winter kit. But it's, yeah, I would not have expected that. That said though, I'm going to add some caveats onto this. My perceived rate of exertion was much less, and my heart rate was considerably lower, and I think I'm in actually much better shape than when I did it last time. And in that regard, I think I actually did less than what I'm capable of today. I did considerably more power 3 weeks ago for an hour-long effort, so the proof's in that pudding. But in our experiment, I'm a sample size of just 1, which isn't very representative, so for a more meaningful result, let's look at what the science literature says. There have been several studies on this over the years, but I'm going to highlight a couple in particular. The first is by Borg et al. From 2020, and they took 30 well-trained club cyclists and got them to perform 2 20-kilometre time trials on different days. One with feedback, with data, and one without. And the result? They were pretty consistent across both time trials. And another study by Smits et al. In Frontiers in Physiology took 20 cyclists and got them again to complete 20-kilometre time trials, and they found that with or without data, the total time to complete that 20-kilometre time trial was roughly the same. Again, so it doesn't appear to make much difference. They did notice one thing though, which was that the power distribution was different. When riders had data, they tended to surge more towards the line, which was quite interesting, but the overall perceived rate of exertion was the same. These 2 papers aren't isolated examples, there are others too, and on the whole the literature suggests that we humans are pretty good at going hard even without data in front of us. That said though, these lab controlled tests are kind of steady state efforts, perhaps more representative of what you'd do on a climb. Whereas in a time trial, it can be a bit different because you can have, you know, rolling hills, rolling terrain, headwinds, tailwinds. And when you have situations like that, having numbers in front of you, I think, and having that feedback can actually be really useful for optimal pacing, because as a general rule of thumb, you want to go hardest when the road conditions are making you go slowest. So for example, into a headwind. This is because maths says so, and if you'd like to find out a bit more about optimal pacing using maths, then we'll pop a link down below with a link to a paper or just on that, some nice light bedtime reading for you. The great news is that, you know, having a computer and sensors all over your bike can be really useful for structuring and monitoring your training. Come race day, it's not essential. So if you line up next to someone and they've got all the sensors and computers all over their bike and you don't need to worry that you need that in order to beat them. Science says that you should be able to go just as hard as you ordinarily would. It's probably more about motivation and being prepared to psychologically bury yourself. And today, I felt like I didn't go quite as hard as I could have done, but I wasn't in a race, and last time I did it, I was. And it's a lot easier to sort of, you know, really bury yourself when you've pinned a number on and you've got carrots up the road to chase. However, to get the pro perspective on how pros use power meters and other sensors, here's recently retired ex-World Tour pro and fellow GCN presenter, Connor.
The only time we deliberately didn't look at our power data was actually in training. I always preferred to look at my numbers when I was training. I've just found it easier to pace myself and kind of make sure I was in a certain zone, but some of my team coaches actually prescribed training where we weren't allowed to look at the numbers. So you go on a climb, do a set effort up the climb, maybe a certain time duration, normally around 20-30 minutes, and you kind of be aiming to ride at a certain intensity, often threshold, without looking at the data at all, just to see kind of how well you could pace the effort and try and remember to be able to pace the effort too, because I think we do rely on our power meters a lot, and you can get kind of caught up in getting too used to looking at your numbers. So it is good to practice, I think. I'm glad my coaches prescribed that sort of training, because when you go to a race, you don't use your power meter as much. I think you just concentrate on what's around you, and you know, concentrate on the race, try not to crash, think about tactics. You don't have that time to look at your numbers on a screen. And it is a good skill to be able to learn how to pace an effort properly without kind of external aid. So yeah, that was the only time I really did kind of deliberately not look at the numbers in training, thanks to some clever thinking from my coaches.
This is really good advice, and what I would suggest is mix it up. You know, perhaps do a race or go out and do some training, maybe not your most important race of the year, and try doing it without being able to see your power numbers. You might go harder, you might not go as hard, but it's a good experimentation thing to do to find out and see what works best for you. Just perhaps don't try it in the hail and the rain of South Wales. I hope this video has been useful to you. Even if it has, please give it a thumbs up, as it really helps us out. And let us know in the comments what your experience has been of looking and not being able to look at data if you've tried it. And I'll see you in the next one. It's freezing. It's really coming down. Bye.